if you really feel in your heart, I can't wait till my kids grow up. I don't want to make somebody feel bad or shameful about really feeling that way because there have been seasons. But what you mean to say is there are things I want time for that I don't know how to create time for today so that I can both enjoy them and not feel like I'm giving up something that is so dear to me.
Mm,
So that is a proactive way of saying, how do I solve for the and? How do I
mm.
solve for joy with my children and the thing that fuels me so that I can be available for the joy with my children moments?
Hey guys, welcome to episode number 244 of the Game On Girlfriend podcast. Today, you're going to listen in to a conversation between two pretty ambitious women. Yes, I'm one of them. And women who also really love their families and really prioritize motherhood. This is an honest conversation with my now good friend, Tiffany Sauder, where we are going to talk about what happens inside a household when a woman is truly ambitious, loves her family, loves her children, and wants to make a concrete impact in the world. And I love this conversation because while we've always discussed the invisible, unpaid work of women, like this is the work that makes society work, and we don't always talk about it, we just sort of accept it as the way it is. This is a conversation where we look at how Tiffany has actually decided and supported creating a conversation of and. She calls it living a life of and, where you say, look, I want this and I want that. What do we need to do to cause that to happen? And I love that she attacks almost every single challenge, problem, issue, whatever you want to call it, that we as ambitious, huge hearted women bump up against. What do we do with it? How do we make our lives work? How do we stay outside of victimhood? How can we be proactive about the things that matter most to us? Tiffany Sauder is a wife, mom, entrepreneur, CEO, board member, investor, podcast host, and keynote speaker. 18 years ago, she founded the marketing agency Element 3. And ever since, she and her husband have been building their companies and their families on the exact same timeline. And that means 4 kids, 3 businesses, and 2 careers, all building towards one abundant life. In her podcast and speaking, Tiffany shares lessons learned from the first 20 years of her career, mixed with vulnerable real-time reporting from her life. You guys are going to hear that today. Very, very vulnerable. But these stories are from her life, her career, her marriage, and her parenting adventures. And as a woman who's chosen to wear a lot of hats, Tiffany is constantly pushing the boundaries on a courageous pursuit of life, a life of and. Now, a couple of things I hope you listen for during this podcast episode. One, that she's had 2 marriages to the same man. Pay attention to that because I think any of us who've had a long-term relationship, whether you're married or not, you're going to understand that. And I think the way that she and her husband sort of attacked that and went for it is so interesting. I think it's going to be really supportive and helpful for people going through that. Also, listen about her relationship to time and how she looks at priorities and values and allows that to dictate where and how she spends her time. And the one thing you're really going to love, spoiler alert right now, listen for the phrase pick and put. It comes up towards the end of the podcast. You're going to thank me. All right, let's pop in those earphones and get to it. Tiffany, welcome to the Game On Girlfriend podcast. I'm looking forward to our conversation today. From one mom to another. Oh my goodness, there's so much we juggle.
Yes, that's right. And we both have high schoolers. So there's a certain spot, I think, on the planet for us.
Oh, insert insanity here. No, it's like, oh
Mhm.
my gosh, there's so much to manage, right? I'm really happy you're here because I might actually personally have a whole bunch of questions for you we need to talk about. But before we jump into all the gooey goodness that we have planned today, I really want to know from you, right? I've been on your website, I've seen all the stuff you're doing and this beautiful, beautiful organization you've created. And I just have to ask you, like, I am pretty clear you have a lot of talents. There's a lot of different ways you could have taken your life and your work and what you do. So out of all the bazillion things Tiffany could have done on the planet,
Mhm.
why is this what you do?
Yeah. So I think we all go on these, like, I think business and a lot of things, entrepreneurship is just this massive process of discovering
Mm,
yourself, like your real motivations, a real understanding of your talents and gifts. And I love this pressure environment of business that every month you get to know a scorecard of am I moving towards or away from my goals.
mm,
And so I think without the pressure of that, I would be too lazy in my own development. And I don't mean that as a knock on myself,
Nope, I got
but
it.
I have this position of like optimism and excitement and like enthusiasm for things such that I can like gloss over something small that's hurting or something small that's like an infraction or this relationship isn't perfect. I'm sort of like, it's fine. Like, we don't just need to like worry our pretty little faces with all those problems. It's kind of my like natural tendency. And I think
Mhm.
that business has taught me the value of honesty, of an honest look at how things are going, an honest look at the quality of a relationship, an honest look at like how I feel, an honest look. And because there's a scoreboard, you can't outrun your bad decisions. At some point, they're going to catch up with you. And I think that business has created an environment of growth for me personally that I needed to become who I was designed and built to be. So
Mm.
I think that's why business. In that kind of life journey, I have anchored on this statement. I've learned kind of cry of my heart is I am for others. I am my happiest, my best, my most creative, my most like perpetually energetic when I'm creating opportunities for other people. And I think the most sustainable way to do that is in business because it self perpetuates itself financially and you can keep going, and if you're successful you can create more opportunities and more leadership. And you talk about putting more money in the hands of women. I feel like my job is to like show that you can do this. And so I love that, I created this agency and to be able to hand it to somebody to lead and for them to get to discover, can I lead? Am I excellent? Can I be great under pressure? Can I lead when I'm uncertain? Can I make decisions without all the information? Can I be kind when I'm mad? Can I
Mm.
like all of these things that you get to learn about yourself? I just think business is an incredible environment for that. So not only has it served me incredibly well, I think in my own development and maturity and understanding of myself and my skills and my talents and the way people operate, but it allows me to also hand that gift to a lot of other people. So
Yeah, well, I'm in. Yeah, I'll take that any day, Tiffany. I think that sounds
yeah.
great. And I love what you said at the very, very beginning. I was like, oh my God, are we related? But it was just like this. I know my weaknesses, right?
Yeah.
And I think you and I are very similar. I was just joking around with my son. He's going to college, he's exploring what he wants to do for a living. There have been a lot of conversations in our house about budgeting and money and how do you manage this? You're about to be on your own. Like, what is this going to look like? And he said, "Why did you start a business?" And I said, "Because I'm inherently lazy." And he was like, "What?" I said, "No, it's not." I said the exact same thing you said.
Mhm.
It's not about being disparaging. But I think in life, and this was the conversation in money too, like how much can you automate, right?
Mhm.
So your own weaknesses don't take advantage of you. Like you have to know what those are and what you can do to support yourself in those tougher moments.
Mhm.
And I'm with you. I think if I had a 9 to 5, I'd be like, I'm gonna go home and watch Netflix. And that would be it. Like, I'd be like,
Totally.
sweet, did my job today. And I
Yeah.
don't think ultimately I'd be fulfilled.
The TV thing is funny to me because I'll tell people, I'm like, I don't watch TV. I just don't watch it. They kind of look at me with this like sort of self-control. I was like, no, it's because I have no self-control. If I start a show, I'm the most distracted thing for a week till I get through it, and I'm up till 2 in the morning and everything I actually want in my life becomes not true because I'm like enamored with these strangers living a life that I'm trying to create for myself. Like, how stupid. You know what I mean? Like, they're rich. They're the ones going on vacation. They're the people who are having passionate love. Like, they're doing the things I want. Why am I just watching this? This is so stupid. And so I've
Oh,
just learned, like, yeah, I look disciplined. Mostly it's traps for myself because I'm wildly undisciplined, like left to my natural state. So,
yes.
yes.
Oh,
And
I
so that's,
love it.
yeah.
Oh, I love it. The honesty in that, right? Like, I wish where people had this conversation is like, oh, no, 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 it looks like this because I have messed it up so royally
Yeah.
so many times. I
Yes.
figured out how to avoid those traps. It's so good, Tiffany. I love it.
Yes.
Well, I think this leads us beautifully into one of your areas of expertise, right? Which is really our relationship to time. And I
Mhm.
love the way that you talk about this. And I would love to hear more about how you sort of came to understand our relationship to time and the tools that we can use around this and what you think is the most valuable for you and also for the people that you work with as you talk about time.
Yeah. So the origin of this came from, okay, I have 4 girls. they're from age 3 to 15 years old. So I was in my 20s when I had my first one, 2 of them in my 30s and one at 40, which is a different podcast. So
Yes, I was just saying,
episode.
how many hours
Same
do we have?
husband. I would say same husband, 2 different marriages. I mean that like that's again different podcast, but we didn't actually have another ceremony, but we kind of crashed as our relationship. We had to figure out if we could come back together. And now we just have, we are such a tribe. It's hilarious. We love it so
That's
much.
fantastic. Oh, that is. I think we
But
managed to bring you back for that one.
yeah,
Woo!
different podcast. Okay, where was I going? I distracted myself. As you said at the beginning of this, he's like, if you do that, it's fine. It's part of us. If us having coffee. Okay,
I
so
know. I
time.
love it. I love it. Yeah. So time, which is our relationship
So
to time. But I mean, having 2 marriages, I can get why that would knock you off
well,
course a little
it's
bit.
not 2 marriages. It is one
But
marriage.
I
But
know what you mean.
yes,
Yeah.
I'll do
So
a quick
cool.
thing on this. So Esther Perel, do you know her? Do you
Yes.
know Esther Perel? I'm obsessed with her. Talk about someone who just speaks truth in the most like normal way. Like she can drop a truth bomb with this like salty accent, a sultry accent, and like
Sultry is the word. Yeah.
just like
Oof.
zhuzhy way she is. And you're like, yeah, no problem. I don't mind that you just punched me in the face. So I love her in that way. But she says 100% of us are married more than one time.
Mm,
50% is to the same person. And
that is really interesting.
her premise is that this first marriage that we go into, and people come into their first marriage in a lot of different ways, but mine was this like naive fairy tale, this Ivy League guy who's 6'3" and is just gonna like literally be perfect for the rest of my life, which is so helpful because then I can be as chaotic as I want to, and it's gonna just be wonderful.
You're like, thanks, hon. Take that. Could
Yeah.
you just take all the chaos? That'd be
I
great.
just
Thanks.
appreciate that about,
Yeah.
and it's going to be perfect. And that naive fairy tale, like love doesn't persist all the way through the realities of our own growth and
Mm,
life and challenges and big opportunities that we were both getting and not having the right toolbox to be able to come together well through that
mm,
achievement, candidly.
mm,
And being more important to people outside of our house than we were to one another. And, like the talk track is very normal. And so it was a helpful context for me to say that version of our marriage was not a bad one. It was a different
mm,
one. And we have to both agree and understand the roles we played in that naive first love it wasn't bad. That was right. That was true for who we both were and the lack of complexity in life. But if we want to go forward together, we both have to admit this is a new start, which means we have to come into it with like fresh look at one another in a way that is hard to do when somebody's familiar. So that's what I mean of like
mm.
my second marriage to the same man.
I got it. No, I
um,
mean, I think, listen,
so
anybody who's been married for a long time gets that, I think. And I think what Esther said is spot on, right? It
totally,
changes and morphs. And I love when you talk about the fairy tale, because then I think we get to a moment, day-to-day life is not so sexy.
totally.
Like the tasks we have to manage, what happens. And I love when you talk about people outside of the home being more important than those who are inside the home, and how easy
Mhm.
easy that is to do. It's like a flip. It's so simple and fast.
Yeah.
And if you're not watching for it, it can really cause problems.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you keep commitments
Yeah.
to strangers. You say kind words to strangers.
Yeah.
All the things that are good hygiene for a relationship, you don't do in your own marriage. So anyway, we
Amazing.
fell into that bucket really
Well,
hard.
we
And
had to, kind of important. I always say to my clients, I don't think I've ever had a client where their primary relationship doesn't come into the conversation ever. And we're talking about
yeah,
business, right?
yeah,
And it's like,
yeah.
it's just so critical. Like these
Mhm,
massive relationships we have in our lives. And here we are creating a relationship to our business too.
mhm.
They're going to be intertwined. So I think it's really important that we stumble into that. And I was very generous of you to share that. And I know there are
Yes.
people listening who just went,
So
me too.
yeah. So
Yeah.
there's my little pep talk. But that
Love
when
it.
she said when Esther Perel said that, Esther, she says it not like so. I say it's so Midwestern. I was like, that was such a light bulb for me. I
Mm,
was like, that framing gives me behavior that I did not have before. I was like trying to repair it. You know what I mean? And it's like,
yeah.
no, that one can be what it was. We have to start over.
Mm,
That is so much easier. In my head, it
yeah.
was. So, anyway, yes. So, I share this tangent with you all.
Very important one. It's an
Yes.
important one. I love it. I love it.
Okay, we'll go back to time. So, what I was starting to kind of say, like, when you start to have kids, at least for me, this idea, this question of balance started to become a like word that kind of starts to show up. Either other
Mm,
people ask you Like, do you feel like you're balanced right now? Or you start asking yourself, am I in balance right now? And what I found is actually people would just say, I feel so out of balance, in this like exhausted
Hmm.
kind of side thing. And so my like professional life, I run a marketing agency, and the thing I know how to do in marketing is brand strategy. And when you're a brand strategist, you're creating company values, you're creating market positioning, you're helping kind of take the intuitive and make it very transferable. And so I think about words a lot. I think in a like, I don't know, an atypical way. I think about words a lot. And so I just really set my mind on, people are so exasperated about this balance thing,
Hmm.
so exasperated about it. What is it? Like, what is it that we mean when we say, I'm so out of balance? And when
Mm.
you just say at something, I'm so out of balance, things just feel so crazy. Like, what are they really saying? What are they really
Mm.
saying? And I think the first thing we can look at accidentally is time. I just don't have time. I don't have time to make my kids food. I don't have time to fill out the stupid. Can we please just Venmo the school $250 at the beginning of the school year into an account, and you can take a draw on that for school pictures, the yearbook, like cupcake day,
Oh my
whatever you
God. Tiffany
need,
for president. Yes. I
whatever
mean,
you
oh
need.
my God.
Can I
Yes,
just do
please.
that? And you can
Yeah.
just draw on the account. That would be amazing. Like all these things where we say we're out of balance. And I started thinking more and more and more about it. And I said, there are seasons where I have slept 4 or 5 hours a night.
Hmm.
I have been so busy, and no part of me has felt tired.
Yeah.
Why is that? Why is it that I don't feel tired? And I started to realize I don't actually think this word balance is connected to time at all.
Mm.
I think we begin to say we're out of balance when one of two things are violated. So, my definition of balance is the intersection of your priorities and your values. When you are living in balance, you are living perfectly in the intersection of your priorities and your values.
Mm.
When we begin to behave in ways that are not aligned with our priorities, so like let's say health is a priority for you, like you've stated that, but you are like sucking at making time for yourself. You're
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
actually eating foods that are real. You're not actually making time for movement. You're not actually making time for personal reflection, whatever, your spiritual life, whatever that is. You're not actually doing it. You begin to say, I am so out of balance.
Mm.
But if you said to yourself more specifically, I am not honoring in my choices, my priorities,
Ooh.
that is what pushes me into feeling out of balance. And to me, that's such when I'm just like, I'm so out of balance, that feels like I'm a reactive victim to this
Hmm.
concept that
Yeah.
other people are sort of putting on me. Instead of saying, no, if I feel out of balance, it probably means I am violating a priority, or I'm pursuing a priority at the expense of a value. So, an example in my world, you have kids too. There is a certain place where I'll just say me, there's a certain place I can push my work hours and the number of evenings I can be gone,
Right.
where my family still feels very much in sync. When I tip the scale, everything breaks. Everything. People
Uh-huh.
lose their mind. The house is chaotic. People don't even remember like what shoes are anymore. Everything breaks. So if a
Yeah.
value of mine, which it is to keep my kids in the center. Like, and again,
Mm.
I'm not trying to protect them from life, but like the things I can do to keep their environment mostly centered so that their problems have space, so that they can have a bad day and they're not like reacting to the earthquake I created for everybody. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
When I pursue my priority of success, of helping other people, of growing my businesses, of extending this, kind of ideology of life of and, if I pursue those priorities at the expense of my values, I also begin to say I'm out of balance. It doesn't mean my choice to choose this priority was bad. It means that I'm doing it to a degree that is violating what I really care about. Make sense?
Mm.
So
Absolutely.
I think this concept of balance is not actually related to time at all. I think they're exchanges of time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Are you really saying I want to sit more?
Is,
Maybe,
is
maybe,
that what you're
maybe.
after?
But I
Yeah.
think what you want is to say, I want to be doing things that are moving towards the things I care about,
Mm.
the adventures I want to have, the stuff I want to create value around, the causes I want to serve, the people I want to have adventures with. And I want to do those in a way that are aligned with who I am as a human being, which is
Yeah.
our values. So
I love it. Oh my God. I mean, yes. First of all, I think the priority value conversation is so interesting. And then when we pick one over the other, it starts to feel a little wonky. And, I have come to understand just for myself, I think, subject to change. No, but I
mm,
think that like really my relationship with time is so emotional.
mm,
And I think it's something I figured out. Like you were saying, you can like sleep for 4 hours and feel amazing, right? And I think that's
mm,
because you're happy.
mhm,
You're
mhm,
working on something that matters and that emotion, or it's that feeling of like when you're working on stuff you love, time flies. And when you're working on something you hate, it's like the longest 5 minutes of your life. That's like emotional. And I never thought about tying that to priorities and values. Tiffany, I think that's really, really powerful.
I think even when you're doing something that you hate, because I worked on, I put together a digital course. You've done some of this stuff too.
Yeah.
Process was excruciating to me. I actually enjoyed only the first probably 30%. And the rest, I was like, this is the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. Why did I say yes to this?
Yeah.
But I kept going back and
Mhm.
telling myself, your priority, this is aligned with the impact that you want to have in the world. And it would, reminding myself of that would take the emotion out of it, exactly what you're saying. Cause you're very present, you're very energetic, you're
Yeah.
really here for it. And if you don't anchor yourself against what the hell am I trying to do?
Mm,
And who am I moving towards becoming? It all gets very distracting and cluttered. And again, I think I have to have it so crisply defined for myself because I am really easily distracted. And then I start to turn into this like, I'm so unbalanced and I'm overwhelmed and I'm tired. And like, nobody wants to hang out with that person.
no.
You don't want to be
Mm-mm.
that person and you don't want to hang out with that person. So I was like, I don't want that. I want to
Yeah.
be invited to parties. So
Right.
I got to
I like
make
friends.
sure.
Yeah.
I got to make
Not only
sure
that,
things
it just feels awful, doesn't it? To be feeling like
totally.
you're not even
Yes.
in your own life. You're like, what is happening? It's a
Yes.
horrible feeling.
It feels terrible.
So I really appreciate it. And once again, I'm going to call you out on being awesome and knowing the best way to manage yourself. You just did it again, which is, you're easily distracted. So
Yeah.
anchoring yourself in that why and that priority in looking at where you want to be going is so critical. I love
Yeah.
it. I love that you do that.
And I've gone through a very intentional exercise of writing those things down for myself,
Mm.
and they are everywhere. And here's the thing, let me add one more tip. The priorities thing, if you're a life of and heart of and like you and I are, which is like, I want to do all the things all the time, all at the same time, please, is I don't have a no list. I have a not now list.
Oh, I love that.
And that is about me saying, I don't need to say no to myself, but
Mm.
I'm saying that's a not now thing. My
Mhm.
biggest thing right now is pickleball. I love this craze, but I don't have time to play. But I want to have time to play. I want the cool
Mm.
outfit. I want the chic bag. I want all of it. I want all of it. I have none of it. But that's on my not now list. There will be a
Love it.
season when my businesses and my kids don't need me in the same way. And I voluntarily give my time to those things
Mm.
because they are my
Mm.
priorities right now.
Right.
Instead of feeling like, and instead of saying, oh, my kids are too small. I don't have time to play pickleball. I can't wait till they get older. Don't like, no, it's on my not now list. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
not now. It's not my priorities right
Mhm.
now. So, anyways,
I gotta tell you, see, now that my children are a little bit older, they're not that much older, but a little bit to the point where like I can leave the house at night to go to the grocery store if I like that a
Mhm.
little bit older, right? It is
Mhm.
so hard when you're not in that phase and they do need you. I think it is quite challenging. But that phrase, I can't wait till my children are older. I have to tell you, I just think saying that feels awful. I think if
I'm
your
hearing that.
children ever overhear you say that, it's awful, right? And hearing it is uncomfortable for all of us. I'm so happy you said that. I had forgotten about that phrase. But it's a
Mhm.
big one for a lot of entrepreneurial mothers, mothers in general, pick a thing. But I really appreciate you saying that. So the not now list and talking about, look, I've got priorities. My priority list is full up. So this one just gets moved over here.
Yeah,
Really,
and let's dig into that for a second because
yeah.
if you really feel in your heart, I can't wait till my kids grow up. I don't want to make somebody feel bad or shameful about really feeling that way because there have been seasons. But what you mean to say is there are things I want time for that I don't know how to create time for today so that I can both enjoy them and not feel like I'm giving up something that is so dear to me.
Mm,
So that is a proactive way of saying, how do I solve for the and? How do I
mm,
solve for joy with my children and the thing that fuels me so that I can be available for the joy with my children moments?
mm.
So that is like that is like the biggest thing that I want to bring forward in the work that
Mm,
I'm doing in the Life of And in the academy is don't necessarily like, yes, let's evaluate the statement. That's not what we want our kids to hear us say. And that's not really what we want to think about our kids. But what do we replace it with?
right.
Fake happiness
Mm,
is also a losing game.
agreed.
And so,
Agreed.
how do you capture for yourself what do I need?
Mm,
I have to be very selfish with my exercise time. And my kids all know that. And I don't apologize for it when I'm gone. I don't apologize for the fact that sometimes my kids are 10 minutes late for school when my husband is traveling and I need to go lift. I don't apologize for those things. That is what I need to be able to give as much as my day and my commitments and
mm,
my priorities need me to give.
yeah.
And they know that this is important to me and we are going to all manage this. And I think that sometimes women and moms are not clear enough with the family about what do you need to be able to give them everything that you can that they need from you. And I tell my kids, I am not a 24-hour convenience store. I am
Love
so
that.
here for you and I'm
Yeah.
so here to help you and I'm so here to make sure that you get where you need to get and the things that are done. But I'm not a 24-hour convenience store. That is not how this works. There are other things going on in this home outside of just your priorities. So
Mm,
I think
mm,
articulating that to them, teaching them that you're a human being that has needs and they sometimes need to be in support of those things. I've
I
got
love it.
kids so far apart that my big
Mm,
ones sometimes have to not go somewhere for an hour because I need to go work out or I need to go on a run. And it's like, I just don't apologize for it.
so
This is
good.
part of what it takes.
No, that's
So,
really, that's a whole new world for so many women to be able to create that space and hold it.
mhm.
Right. Cause I think we all create it on Sunday nights. We write out our list. Right. And then life happens and the whole thing goes to hell. Right. So really like owning that space and taking the time for it, I think that's so great. And I really appreciate what you said about not shaming people who said that. Cause God knows I've said it. Right. I just know it doesn't
Totally.
feel
I
good.
felt it
Right.
totally. Like I
Yeah. It
look at
just,
these other
oh,
people who can just jump on an airplane,
you're like, what is
couple
that like?
teenagers. Yeah.
I don't know what that means. Yeah.
Not have to
But,
have fruit snacks.
did you walk out of the house without peanut butter on your shirt? I
That's
don't understand. No,
yes.
but really recognizing and honoring that phase of life as well without making ourselves wrong, the kids wrong, the situation, it's part of it. And I love what I love so much about what you do is the word and,
Mhm.
right? This is real. And what are we going to do? It's
Yeah.
just so great. But you're actually reminding me of a book I'm currently reading. So I don't want to act like, I know all the books in the world, but there's a
Do
book
tell.
called The Nordic Theory of Everything. And it's so interesting. And I'm not done with it. So I can't fully condone every single thing it says, but there is a chapter on supermoms. And
Huh.
the author is from Finland and talking about the different ways that children are raised throughout the world and how communities support parenthood and children. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I've just found it fascinating. So I wanted to offer that as
I
well. Because
want to
when
know
you were
the
saying that,
backstory of how you found this book.
I know money. It's interesting. I'm always studying money and our
Yeah.
strategies around money and how we
Okay.
use money. And someone was like, you really want to read this book? I was like, but do I really? It doesn't
It's a
sound that
like
interesting.
it is a
Yeah.
bold title, like to just be
Right.
browsing through. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
know, but I'm telling you, I'm talking about it because it's really fascinating. But it's also
Okay. I'm
obviously it's about
excited.
social programs and daycare and like what we're doing and how we're supporting each other and how as a community we can show up for each other. And I think what you're doing is part of that, right? That spirit of like, how do we create and for people? Where do we find this space for each other? And how can we walk each other through this without the shame, without the blame, with like, oh, well, I did it better than you did. Like that
Mhm.
thing that can happen. And I think it's mostly unintentional because we're all feeling so tired. Anytime we feel like we've done something really well, we're like, look. And then we unintentionally put people down. I don't think we mean to. So I think bringing this conversation to the surface and talking about it, I just think it's so important, Tiffany. And I really am really grateful for the work that you're doing because I think it gives other people permission, sort of organically to talk about the stuff that's really hard.
Mhm.
And what are we going to do with it? So cool.
Totally. How
Yeah.
do you have a proactive posture towards how do I solve this? Because I want both of these things. And, we
Mm,
talked about my marriage earlier, and I was like, this is just wholly unacceptable. Like, I've never wanted to be medium at anything in my life. This is like
oof.
embarrassing. You know what I mean? Like, this
Yeah.
is terrible.
Hmm.
Why is this the case? And when we were going through it, when I was going through the mental model of like, what am I going to have to become? What am I going to have to do? What am I going to have to give up to have the space for my marriage? And I was like, no, he doesn't want a smaller version of me. I just need to figure out how to show up. We just needed more honesty and stuff in our relationship. And so that was like an
Mm,
and. I was like, no, I want he's not asking me to not work and like, but like, I think what we do when we're trying to solve something hard is we try to go to make life really small so that then
Oof.
it's simple. You know what I mean? I think that's what I'm trying to
Yeah.
instead
Oof.
of being like,
Mm.
no, it can be big.
Yeah.
You just have to solve for it really specifically. But I was like, well, yeah, when you're in crisis, I think the tendency can be, well, I just have to like cut off every limb and I have to make life small and I have to be super bored. And if I'm that, then things will be okay. And it's like, no, you're not the best version of
Mm.
yourself in that either. So,
Oh my God. I think what you just said that I think so funny it happens on the podcast. I'm like bumper sticker moment, but I would love that on a bumper sticker. Like when life gets hard, we start cutting things off and we try to make it simple. And the answer isn't always to make everything small.
mm-mm.
That is
Yeah.
not always the answer, but it's so interesting. Again, going back to your work with the word and there, right? Because I feel like there's so many times in life when we're struck with something or something happens, we look around and we go, okay, well, it looks like we've got two options. I stay home or I work. And it's like,
Yeah.
nope, no, no, we don't have to shrink down into the past that we've seen. There's thousands of ways to do this. And I think the and in your work really creates
Mm-hmm.
that opening for the brain to start to explore, okay, wait, what if it's not just this or this?
Mm-hmm.
What if it's this and this? Hold on, what do we do?
I,
How do we
I
do this?
think
Yeah.
creating your version of these things, we'll go back to this concept of balance. People, and probably you too, people have looked at me from the outside pretty much every day of my life and externally determined that my life looks out of balance. Like, you
Oh,
know,
interesting.
you know
Okay.
what I mean? Like, you're so busy, Tiffany. You've got all these kids. Like, my husband travels between 40 and 70% of the time. He's gone a lot. Like,
Wow.
people like,
Mm,
it must be so out of balance. And they kind of say it as a generous thing, actually, not as a judgment thing. Like, you're just like, you're kind of, the top is spinning as fast as it can. It must be out of balance. Like, it's like, absolutely not at all. I love the pace that we run, and our kids are conditioned to it, and it works really well for us, actually. And we have like really clear things in place to keep everybody on the same page.
mm,
But my goal with this word of balance, you talk about, deciding, are you going to stay home or are you going to work outside of the home? And I think especially when you have kids, it becomes like when you're having kids or adding kids, it becomes this like, what are we going to do? Really encourage people to sit down with their plus one and really define separately and then come together on your
wow.
values and priorities. Because what we're
Mm,
usually thinking is, if I go back to work with two kids, you can't mentally fathom the way you're going to have the time to love them and tend to them and be available for them in a way that feels enough. But you've never actually gone through the exercise of quantifying for yourself, what actually does that look like? And it feels weird to say, this is how many hours a week I want with my kids.
mm,
But doing that is very empowering because then you have something to manage to. Then you can say, I'm going to test being with my kids. If Saturday and Sunday are 48 hours, I'm going to test being with my kids 62 hours this week. I don't know, pick a number.
mm.
And I'm going to track it. And I'm going to get to the end of the week and say, I feel full and they
Amazing.
feel healthy.
Mhm,
This is a good place for us. And it's not like wean it down but literally paying attention to it began to be a way for me to model what is enough. And that is not because I'm trying to give them the tiniest drops of possible love and availability, but it does mean I want to know how much space do I have for other priorities, other things that I want to do that keep us in balance and aligned. And so I like pay attention to that. That's why I was saying I kind of know the tipping point when it's like, nope, I cannot have 2 dinners a week. That goes very poorly. I'm getting off of my outside boards because the travel required for that
Mm,
is just really hairy as we have all these travel sports and the kids are getting older. There's just like different requirements
totally.
and nobody
Yeah.
can drive. And so I just started to realize like I just have to like exchange some of these priorities right now and that's okay. So
Mhm.
my point
Mm,
is, when you go through seasons of change, go back and revisit your priorities and your values and sit down with your plus one and ask yourself, what value am I afraid is going to get too squeezed if I
mm.
continue to pursue these priorities? So,
Mm, yeah. Oh, so good. And I think that kind of reminds me too of the not now list, right? It's almost like a chessboard of priorities.
yep.
I said, this one's got to be back here and be protected, but it's not out front right now. That's
Mhm.
kind of what
Mhm.
I was picturing as you were
Totally.
talking. But I think that's right. It's not that any of them are off the board. They're
Totally.
all there. It's just a matter of which one's out front right now. I love that. I love
Mhm.
that. Finally, I know you have some tools, right? Even more tools. This has been amazing of this work that we as human beings have to do when there are two people with careers in a home. I mean, it's just different, right? It's just the way it is. There's only, like you were just saying, there's 62 hours for the kids. Okay. How do we do that with a significant other who also is just as in love with their career as we are with ours?
Yeah, so bulk of my experience has been from a two-career home, and so that is my work is from that experience, and so
Mhm.
it, for the most part, is focused on exactly what you're talking about, two-career homes. I think there's one tool that I would offer that has really helped us just run more efficiently, which I'm a 3 on the Enneagram, I don't know if you know that, so we are
Yes.
ruled by efficiency. Do you know what yours is?
I always forget. I want to say
Okay,
7, but I
okay.
don't know.
I
I'm
like I like well, I
terrible.
like everybody, but I like sevens are fun. Yeah. I'm an achiever, but efficiency is what I'm ruled by. And so the tool that I would offer up if you're finding yourself in a two-career home and talk about like, I just don't want to be reactive. I want to be on top of my life. And so one of the tools that I do is we run every day a morning roundup and an evening wind down.
Oh, I love that.
A
Okay.
morning roundup and an evening wind down. And that is the most ordinary parts of keeping your house like sane and in the center and out of the
Mm,
chaos. So I'm a little bit of a neat neck, like I don't like things to be crazy. When the space is crazy, my head is cluttery. And so I
okay.
really have to work to manage that. So
Mm.
the evening wind down is those list of things that happens every single night, no matter what, that makes it so that you can start the next day totally fresh. So for
Ooh.
us, that is things like the counters are all clean, like the kitchen counters in particular. The island is my pet thing. I want to be able to see the lights reflecting. The dishwasher gets run. There's 3 trash cans that gets emptied,
Mm.
and we do a 10-minute pick and put as a family. And so that means I like literally set the Alexa timer for 10 minutes. Whoever's in the like in the vicinity, I say we got 10-minute pick and put, and you pick something up and you put it away.
Oh
And
my god. I'm like, "What the heck is a pick and put?" And now I
you
want it
pick it up
every
and you put
day.
it away.
Oh,
If you had found somebody's shoes, that's amazing. Put those away. If you found an Amazon package that needs to be opened, that's incredible. Open it up and put it away. If you found like
love it.
pick and put. And then everybody can chill out and watch 10
Mhm.
minutes of a show or whatever they
Right.
need to do, read a book in their room. But then it doesn't become only my job to
Oof.
make sure the house is ready to start again the next day. And I was finding I was getting so behind in piles and mail and these pile of homework nobody ever went through and this stack of Amazon packages by my front door. And I was like, I'm losing my mind, people. Like, this
Yeah.
is nuts. I'm not the only one that lives here.
Oh my gosh, I love
So,
it.
and
Well,
packing lunches is the other thing on our evening wind down.
okay.
So we run our evening wind down, whether I'm home or I'm not. The family knows to run this.
Good.
And it's just an agreement we have. This is what
Ah,
happens. This is how we all stay together. And I don't walk
lose your
around feeling
mind.
like, am I the only one that can see all of this? And I kind of am the only one that sees it. But since there's a checklist now, everybody can see it. So
So
that's
good.
the evening event. In the morning roundup, I'm a morning workout person. So I have less that happens in the morning,
Mm.
but we refill water bottles. I look through backpacks, like looking at the things, and I like do their hair and stuff. But my morning stuff is kind of my me time. So I don't do a ton for the fam jam. Most of
Mm.
that's done at night.
I love it.
But
I love
I know
it.
people have energies in different places. So it's kind of it's the flywheel of making sure that the space is clear so that we can
Mhm.
live life in it. So
Oh,
morning wind up.
so good. Well,
Mhm.
I'm totally stealing that, right? So I
Okay.
have 2 teenagers in the house. Actually, the other day, they were watching TV. They'd done all their homework. Everything's done. It's Sunday night. We're all chilling. I walk in the kitchen and there's a sink full of dishes.
Yeah.
And I came back down and I look at them. I said, "What do you think it's gonna take for you guys to get in there and do the dishes?" And they both just got up and did it. I was like, "Okay, I need to figure out a way to do that."
Totally. Cause you don't want to micro
Because I
solve.
wasn't even mad. I was just like, "I've asked so many times. I don't care what they cook. They total rain. I want them to learn how to be adults." But I was like, "Dudes,
Yeah.
mm-mm." But I didn't want to get mad. And so I was
No,
like,
and you're like, and I don't want to
yeah, it was so
micromanage you,
interesting.
and I don't want to boss you around, and I don't
No,
want to nag you, and I don't want to do
mm-mm,
that.
not interested. Yeah. So it
Um,
was just more of a like, what do we need?
yeah.
And they were like,
So
I don't
let
know.
me give you a
So
tool,
good.
one last tool, and then we'll be done. So, implicit agreement or implicit expectations versus explicit agreements.
Okay.
Implicit expectations versus explicit agreements. That's kind of where this came from.
Mm.
So I would walk in after being done, like gone for an evening, a dinner or something, and I would walk in and like the dishwasher would like be half loaded. There'd be stuff on the counter. There's like shoes everywhere. And I was like,
You're
I
like,
felt so
why?
disrespected,
Yes.
like, is everybody literally just thinking to themselves, "We'll wait till mom comes home and then she'll do it?" Like,
It can
it's
feel
been a
that way.
longer day for me. I'm tired too. I've been away from everybody. And so, like, what in the world? And so I was introduced to this concept of implicit expectation. So I had implicitly implied to them, I want this cleaned up, but I had not actually told anybody and they had not agreed to it.
Mm,
And so what I
mm,
did is I turned that implicit expectation into a very explicit agreement with this evening wind down. And I said, look, guys, this is what I had been doing every night was going through this checklist. I had never told the family. I had never published it to them. And I
mhm.
had never said, it makes me feel loved, seen, and supported when you guys run this because it is a gift to me in the morning to walk out and feel like it's a fresh start. Like it's a
Mm,
fresh power up.
so
So
good.
if you love me, if you want to respect me, and if you want to show me love, this is what you will do when I'm away. Not because I'm telling you to, but because, well, also because I'm telling you to.
No,
But I,
but it creates too that community inside of a home,
yes,
right? Right? They're
yes,
not guests.
totally.
That's not what's happening here, right?
And
This is
I
a
don't have to
community.
stand there being like,
Yeah.
I'm not your servant, yelling at them. It's like, no, I want you to see me. I want you to understand this is important to me. And it allows me to serve you well in the morning for breakfast and to have,
Mm,
you know what I mean? It's for us. So that was where this came from. But explicit agreements
mhm.
are a really important part of, I think, a family dynamic staying really healthy. So,
Ah, it's so good. The other thing I love about it, Tiffany, is it takes out any victimhood from mom. Which I think
yeah,
is
totally.
so important, right?
Yes.
Because we don't wanna walk around feeling that way. It goes back to what we said before. I don't wanna say
Yeah.
that. I don't wanna be that person. I don't wanna
No.
feel that way. That's this very solid tool to help us do that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, I think we could talk for about another 3.5
Yes.
hours. What I'd like to do is I know you have your 4-week course. Can you tell us a little bit about that? If someone's like, "Oh my gosh, this was really helpful, Tiffany. What more can I get from you?"
Yes. So all of these tools that I just talked about are inside of the course, plus a bunch of other stuff. But it's literally about how do you unlock a life of and for yourself? How do you
Mm,
move from chaos to connection? How do you move from a reactive to a proactive state? It is possible. My life is like a complete story of it. My marriage was a mess. I was reacting to motherhood. I was reacting to my life. And I was like, I'm just better than this. There's
mhm.
no way that this is what being an adult feels like. I have got to re engineer my life. So I've done that over the last 5 years, and I have worked really hard over the last 6 to 9 months to put this into a 4-week course to help two career families get on top of their life of and begin living in a way that feels free and abundant and present for your actual life. You talk about that. Like, this is not a dress rehearsal. This is the real thing, actually,
Yeah.
everybody. So the wait list is open right now. What we do is we take people through in groups so that we can support them in the live Facebook community as well. So the wait list is open right now, lifeofandacademy.com. I'm sure we'll put links in show notes. And then I also have a podcast called Scared Confident, where I give essentially, my a kind of a look at my life and what I'm learning along the way, share some tools and tips, and then have guests that come on and kind of share perspectives from two career families. So if you're wanting to just kind of get a little bit more, the podcast is a great place to start. Or if you're ready to dive into the deep end, then join us in the course.
I love it. I love it. Tiffany, thank you so much. You guys, we are going to have links to her course and to her website and her social media handles underneath this video if you're watching on YouTube and in the show notes if you're listening in. Tiffany, thank you so much. I have a feeling this is one of those episodes people were like taking notes. So good. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.